Hi, my name is Niyi Adekunle, and I am a teacher. Some people call me a coach, and over the last 20 years, I've been involved in teaching and training people in the area of relationship, whether it's family relationship, marriage relationship, workplace relationship, and we've had a lot of testimonials of people who have seen great transformation in these areas. And one of the major areas we also talk about is marriage relationship, how people can move from singlehood into married life and all that. And we have the program we call it I'm Still Available. It's our training session for matured single ladies, both whether it's on a private platform or a general platform, where we train them on the things they need to do based on the four major areas we look at. We call it the RAVA model. R, which is readiness, A, availability, V, visibility, and the last A, accessibility. And we've seen great results over the years. One of the people we've seen, you'll hear in this video testimonial. As you watch, you will hear their stories, you will hear about the interaction we had, the things they learned, the things they went through, and you'll see how they got to where they got to with respect to their marriage. It's not so much to show that we are doing something that is out of this world or fantastic, whatever. It's more importantly to hear that from our experience, it's never too late to get married, whether you are 35, 45, 55, 65, 95, whatever it is. Once you learn the things you need to learn, you put them in your life, you apply them consistently, and you're expectant, then I have seen this happen over and over again. So hear the testimony, expect it, learn the lessons, and go and do likewise. And if you want to join us in any of our trainings, check us online and check some of the details after this this video, and I'm sure you have one or two information that can help you reach out to us.
Hello, my name is Nkem Delim, and I am a solicitor based in the United Kingdom. I am also a notary public. By way of background, I'm the first of 5 kids. Grew up in Lagos, University of Lagos, first degree, and then second degree in law, and then went on to other things. So in terms of family life, an idyllic childhood in Lagos, and sort of had my fair share of relationships. I was very studious, though, to be fair. So at university, I was kind of like concentrating on studies and stuff like that. So I'd had quite a few marriage proposals in my late teens and early 20s, but I just knew that it wasn't right for me. I couldn't even be sure why I was certain of that, but I just knew instinctively that they weren't the right people for me. And so sort of went through, finished my degree, started work, always really had a desire for marriage and for children. That was always my desire, but I was very studious, and I just thought, well, while I'm single, I'll do as much, have as much fun, travel the world, visit places. I was very courageous and brave about that. So I went to lots of places and tried to live as full a life as possible. On or around 2004, I got a clear, distinct word from the Lord. It was from Habakkuk, where it says, though we tarry, wait for the appointed time, it will surely come. And I knew instinctively that was referring to marriage. And I remember thinking, well, if God's saying it will tarry, gosh, it will tarry. But I was thinking maybe a couple of years. It would take another about 19 years for the fulfillment of that word. But I carried on, had relationships that would have ended in marriage and then didn't. I think also I was very clear about the premium I placed on myself. So I remember being in a relationship with a Nigerian barrister, and after 3 years he was still prevaricating, and I just said to him, if you have to think that hard about whether or not you want to marry me, you're probably the wrong guy. And that was it. That was the end of the relationship, much to his shock. So although I wanted to get married, I was also clear that it was a marriage at any cost, because I had to be authentic to myself. In terms of just self-preservation, it meant that some of my relationships had to change. Anyway, what I did was to avoid relationships where people made me feel less than because I wasn't married. And I just worked really hard. I was really intentional about maintaining very healthy relationships. So if I was in a relationship with sort of a girlfriend who was always like, oh, my husband this, my husband that, and even when it's not even in the right context, it was a realization that, look, you're in a relationship, friendship relationship with someone who maybe feels that, either subconsciously or consciously, they want it obvious, that they want it really obvious to you that, oh, I'm married and you're not. So what I did was to seek out wholesome relationships, because in the waiting, that was really important. And it's the same thing. I wasn't in relationships where people were telling me to do things that I knew clearly were against Christian godly principles. So that was really important. I had a brilliant church family as well. And I knew my pastors were praying. So about 6-7 years after I got that word, the Lord changed my name and gave me the name Beulah, which means wife and mother. And it took a few more years for me to even share that with friends and my pastors. And then my family and really a core group of friends started to call me Beulah. So every time they were calling me Beulah, it's wife, mother. And, out of faith, I remember sharing with a dear friend of mine, I went out and bought a box of confetti. And I got that box of confetti probably about, I'd say easily 15 years ago. And there was only one box of confetti thrown at my wedding, and that was that box that I'd held onto for 15 years. And as I said, I'd had relationships, and then there was a long period of just the desert years, I called them. And I thought, why is this so hard? It just didn't make sense. I'd walk down the street and say, Holy Spirit, I don't get it. They're married. Why can't I? It's, And so, yeah, it was just this journey of and I had valleys and just, moments where I just thought, actually, this is never going to happen. And I was oscillating between the two positions of faith, and then in moments of weakness, just thinking, well, perhaps I've got it completely wrong. Maybe it would never happen. And so, obviously, COVID hit. But just before COVID, I'd been introduced to Pastor Nee through a really difficult time in my family's life. And he had been very helpful to my parents. So he was just someone I knew. And I used to listen to his podcasts, and he had like video series, like stories, and that was something I was really, really keen on listening to. And I'd listen, I'd ask questions, and it was during one of those moments that he just said to me out of the blue, "Why aren't you married?" And my initial reaction was that's just rude. I mean, who does that? It's none of your business. And he said, well, why aren't you married? And I said, well, I suppose I'm waiting for Mr. Right. And he just dismissed that, and then he said, well, what are you doing? Which I thought was odd, because I just felt, well, surely it will just happen. And then, at the time I was sporting an afro. I was kind of looking after myself, I thought, but he was like, you can do better. There are things you can do. You can be intentional about how you meet people as well. And so he started this program of mentoring. But in my head, I was actually working as his PA to help with the church. And I hadn't quite realized that he was mentoring me until I remember where I was one day when I heard again clearly the word of the Lord, and it was, you do realize that that is the word of a prophet. Because often Pastor Nee, if you know him well, will say stuff and he's laughing and you're laughing, but actually the joke was on me. So I never took him seriously because he was always laughing and joking. But from the minute I caught that word, I was very attentive. So whatever he said to do, I did. And what then happened was I felt really strongly for a milestone birthday that I was to join a dating agency, and it's quite an expensive one to my mind. My sister had given me some money and she said, use it for yourself. So I thought, fine. Grudgingly, to be honest, I applied to this agency. And because I'd spent all that money, I was very intentional about writing my profile. So I'd written my profile, sort of everything was ready for the agency. And then come January, they sent me 15 names. No one showed any interest. They sent another 15 names. No one showed any interest. They're now 30 names. Then they sent another 15. So there are 45 people. I was like, Holy Spirit, what is happening? You know, I could have saved that money, and who needs to be embarrassed? Like, there are now 30 people and no one said a word. So I remember ringing Pastor Nee and just really being quite cross that this was just a complete waste of money. And I will say here that throughout this period, I'd had a friend I'd known since 1989, a Muslim who's married, had said clearly wanted a second wife. And that was an offer he made to me from that period. And even a few years ago, he was still talking to my parents about it. So that was always in the background. As an offer, it was kind of this enticing offer, I'm still available. And so I was really quite cross with Pastor Nee. And then he just said to me, send me your profile. I'm going to find your husband. And I actually laughed. My response was, in my head, yeah, right. But because I had it, I'd done the work anyway, I sent it to him. That was on a Wednesday. On the Thursday, he rang and said, I'm going to introduce you to Wills. Wills had been in a long relationship for 28 years. He had been married for 18 to his childhood sweetheart. They'd always wanted kids, had a set of twins. Sadly, she died at childbirth. And then he had entered into this really toxic relationship that he was just coming out of. So he wasn't interested, really. It was just being polite. And I'd said to Pastor Nee throughout, I don't care. I'm really quite easy on choice for a husband, but not a pastor. Not interested. I'm just not doing that whole microphone thing. It's not my thing. So the minute Pastor Nee said, oh, he's a pastor, I just thought, forget it, not interested. And Wills himself was like, no, I've been through too much at the moment. I'm not interested. What then happened was, we had conveyed this to Pastor Nee, by the way, and then just started talking like friends. We became friends. And probably within 10 days, we were pretty sure that this was it. And I couldn't tell you how we went from not interested as a pastor to we're talking marriage. And I remember just coming home from work one day. I can still see where I was when I got, I think it was Genesis 24:57 or 58. It's the story of Rebecca and Laban and Abraham's servant. And Abraham's servant wants her to go back immediately as Isaac's bride. And the brothers say, no, let her stay a while. But they call and say, will you go? And the response is, will you go? The response is, yes, I will go. And that was what I had. And I'd said after the end of my last relationship, where I heard clearly again, it was like, let this guy go. And I remember saying to him, the same way, Lord, you've told me to let this guy go. When it's the right person, I want it in writing. I want to hear it. I want it confirmed in writing, and I want a third party to confirm it. So I'd heard it, I'd seen it in the book, and my business mentor as well, who had been praying for me at the time, had exactly the same word. And I remember saying, Lord, I'm to say yes to someone I haven't even met. It just sounded so far-fetched, but in obedience, I kind of said yes, and then we'd agreed to meet in London. I was very intentional about, my parents and just making an effort to look, really lovely. And got there, and he turned up. He was in an oversized jacket, probably oversized jeans, like a carrier bag, one of these plastic big carrier bags, like I think an oversized backpack. I'm being really intentional about mentioning these things because he didn't look anything like the image I had in my head of how my husband would look. And had I made a decision, remember I'd already been given an answer, and in obedience I was going to follow through. But when I saw him, in my mind, I was having this conversation with the Holy Spirit. I was like, no way. In my head, I'm like, I've paid my dues. There is no way. This isn't me. We're not doing this. This is the conversation I'm having with the Holy Spirit in my head. And just going, nope, he's not my type. Nope, not interested. And what had happened was he'd come into London, but he then needed to pick up a suitcase in another place. So it's a bit like you agree to meet your date in, let's say you live in Lekki. You agree to meet your date in Surulere. And then he says, I need to collect a suitcase in Ibadan. Can we go there by train? And I was like, who does that? I was so angry. But my upbringing kicked in, and I just went, okay, I'm here now, I'll do it anyway. He says that to him it was like a test, like when Abraham's servant says, the woman that is right for Isaac is the one that will not only water me, but water my cattle as well. And I'd gone there. Now he went to collect a suitcase. When he went to get the suitcase, like it's one of these suitcases like with 4 tires, 2 were broken. So I'm just trying to paint a mental picture of, there's already the shock of how he looked when he came to see me. Now he's got a broken suitcase. And I was just like, this cannot be happening to me. In fact, I thought there was like a, one of these webcams, like surprise or something. I was like, just the worst possible first date. And I'm still battling with the Holy Spirit going, I can't do this, I can't do it. And finally, I feel the Holy Spirit say to me clearly, it's your choice. I'm not going to force you. But one of the points I'd made was, he's not my type. And I felt the response was really, and what is your type? And then I heard clearly, and this could not have been from me, you can either have packaging or you can have authentic. I heard it clear as day. And I thought, okay, that's really clear. And this has never, ever, ever happened to me before. But as Wills and I were walking down the streets of London, again, I can still see where I was. In an instant, it was like this microsecond. I saw, it was like I was at crossroads. So you either choose yes or no. That was the crossroads. And I saw in an instant my future regret if I said no. It just happened. It was like in a blink of an eye. And like I said, I've never had that experience before. And I just remember saying, okay, Lord, I'll obey. I'll do this. So I gave him my answer and I went back. We then started the process of sort of, marriage. Spoke to Dad, my mum, and, my parents approved. And it just felt like it was a work in progress. And we then clearly got to the point of marriage. We got married on the 14th of September. And we've been in a relationship now for 1.5 years, and I can honestly say that those 3 qualities I wanted, he has in spades. I can also say actually that he was worth the wait. And I'm so glad that I obeyed the promptings of the Holy Spirit in this, because he didn't look, and we're visual creatures, so I would have gone purely on the looks initially anyway. I mean, clearly the things, it may have unfolded later, but he didn't look at all like the person that he is. And the lesson for me is, sometimes you can see someone and maybe dismiss them because you think, oh, well, it's not my type, he hasn't got my spec. But actually, what you live with is reality, the reality of who that person is. And that's why I suppose there's so many divorces, because you start with this package, but then the package never really has substance to it. And on the other hand, here was this man who didn't have any of the frills and the packaging. He was like, you know what, with wills, what you see is what you get. And we're so different. But he was authentic. He had authenticity. He was actually the real deal. And what's astonishing is we're so different. When I think of, I'm with someone that I'd actually said I didn't want. I said, I do not want a pastor. I don't even want anyone in like youth ministry, around that whole pastor microphone thing. Nope, we're not doing that. I probably wanted to marry either someone from the East, or actually I was looking to marry someone from the East, maybe someone from a Yoruba guy or a Northerner. I was calling it the 3 main tribes criteria. And I've ended up with someone who's from Edo State. We're so different. We're just so different. I haven't watched TV for about 7-8 years. He likes TV. I like sort of really quiet and classical music and lovely jazz. No, so when you're looking at these things and just going, but how, Lord? We're so different. And yet our values are the same. It's that, and I think really what's important is to work out what your values are, because that's what you live with, shared values. And it is worth waiting for the person that God has for you. Definitely. And I think we even shocked Pastor Nee with the speed, because from the first conversation on the Thursday, by the following Tuesday, we were talking marriage, and I'd said yes by that Sunday. So I'm sure that's about 11 days. And Pastor Nee was shocked. In fact, at one point he was like, I think you should go slow. It's just been an amazing journey. And now I'm mom to twins that I'm adopting. And even my non-Christian friends are like, how does this happen? And only God, he really is the God of the suddenlies. We've set up home, and I'm just marveling at how God can get it so right, and he knows what we don't know about ourselves. So it's just been, shockingly quick. And I was on the next session, the last session, and it replicated itself, because literally I think we had 5 sessions, and someone else there by the end of that session had a proposal of marriage. And there's a grace at work here. I've seen it's happened for me firsthand. And it's been quite a journey. And I'm still kind of reeling in shock. And that's me. Thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful. And I will say though that, my story is not to, make anyone feel uncomfortable. When I mention things about hearing from God and, it's my journey. It's just the way I hear from God. It's not to put pressure on anyone, because we're all different. Some people just have a knowing, an assurance, and a firmness. But in my case, it was directions. So I really hope that has helped. I hope it has. Thank you.